Hey guys, Katie here with HomeTown Bank, and today I'm sitting down with financial expert Danny Kelly. Hey Danny.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm great.
You ready to talk about money?
I'm always interested in talking about money.
Okay, good, because I need to learn. So first things first, how long have you been working in finance?
About 35 years.
Wow. Mm-hmm. Was that always something you wanted to do?
Yes, actually, it was just always something that interested me.
35 years ago, how did you start in the industry?
I started out as a loan officer for a small finance company here in Aniana, and making small loans to people, and that's how I got started and got me introduced to real people making real wages, making real money.
What areas of the financial world do you consider yourself an expert in?
Primarily like the inner workings of people's home balance sheets, their wealth, their income versus their debt, that kind of thing.
So more personal management.
Yeah, exactly, personal finance.
And what's your favorite part of doing this work in the financial world?
Seeing someone start and watching them progress, and the American way where you have people who start as a manual labor and then they run, say, for instance, a 12 or 15 man crew, and then the next thing you know, they have their own business with that same 15 man crew, and that's just very fulfilling to see, the chapters of their financial life and the chapters of their life moving forward, growing their wealth, growing their abilities, and the things that they can enjoy.
So based off of what you've experienced seeing these other people grow their businesses and their companies, what is some advice that you've taken or you've learned that you implement in your own family or with kids?
Is to isolate what you're trying to do, understand what you're trying to accomplish, and then, zero in on it and focus on that and get it done. It's amazing the power of victory. If you have some victories and you start to make progress, then it kind of builds on itself. If you have too wide-ranging of your goals or anything like that, you lose focus and you don't ever feel like you've ever accomplished anything. And in doing so, you kind of get, beat down or don't feel like you really want to do it anymore. So that defeats people more often than anything. It's not their incomes, it's not their abilities, it's the idea that they just never win. Mm-hmm. And they've set way too many high goals in the beginning and unreachable things that they can't achieve. And so that's something that we've done. Now, as far as in our home, there's two things specifically that we've done from a savings perspective, and it worked really well. First off, my children, when we went to a restaurant, I would pay them $1 to order water. And the deal was, obviously I was saving money because instead of a Coke or tea or even anything, the water was free. And so I was paying them $1 to save $3. But they got so accustomed to getting the $1 that they started to drink water on their own.
It's a good habit.
Yeah, actually, we formed a habit. But you can rest assured the first couple of years they were waiting on their $1 before the food came out. But it established a way of them understanding that they could save money, and still enjoy their meal or whatever it is that they were getting. And the other thing was, if we ever had something like a vacation or a trip planned, we always developed a jar. And it's very similar to the savings jar that we have at HomeTown. And we would just put if it was a trip to the beach or if it was a trip to New York City or whatever, and we would start to put money in, every day.
As a family,
and you'd start to see that build up. And then what happens with that is when you do take that trip, it takes the pressure off of the financial side of that, because you've saved for a year or you've saved for 9 months or something, and it makes it so much more enjoyable. But it's a lot of fun too to see the savings build up.
Yeah, that's great. And you touched on kind of how people can be self-conscious about not reaching money goals or having too big of goals, and something as simple as saving for a trip could be a good place to start.
I think that we really, make things so complex now, and there's so much information out there that people, they have these really complex ways to try to save and invest and that kind of thing. And I think simplicity is critical. Mm-hmm. And also, starting small so that you do have those victories and you start building momentum,
Right.
and more or less just establishing a habit. And I say all the time that saving is the best way to acquire wealth. Investing is wonderful, but saving is the place to start. And not spending as much, you have the ability to establish a way of life that you just don't spend as much money. You're cognizant, or you're aware of how much you're spending, and so you just kind of walk through things and say, well, I'm just not going to spend as much. I think it's important that you know what you're spending. I'm not a big fan of budgets where you set aside, hey, this is how much I'm going to spend on this individual area, because it sets people up for failure. And then once they start to fail, then they just don't feel like they have a way of ever accomplishing it.
Yeah.
And so it's important that they need to know what they're spending. But I think more than anything, they need to get a way of life that involves less spending, and then all of a sudden their savings grow.
It clicks.
and yeah, it's the jar idea, right? Where they can see the actual physical progress of what's happening with that spending. So
it sounds like in lieu of a traditional budget, it's kind of more of a mindfulness and just a practice.
Absolutely, it's a way of life,
Yeah.
and it's a lifestyle. It's very similar to exercise. If you change or diet or whatever, you can. I don't know how many people set New Year's resolutions that don't make it to the finish line, and that is, it's kind of erodes their confidence. And so I would rather see them just say, okay, we're going to, take this trip and we're going to pay for it. It's going to take us 9 months, and we're going to put money in our jar every day until we get there. So.
I think too, there's a patience practice in that, because so many people, I think, have a habit of spontaneously spending instead of having a real awareness that a trip might take 9 months to pay for. And you're going to have to be okay with that if you don't want to go into debt over it, or if you want to actually save up so it's not a stressor.
Again, it is an achievable thing that you're laying out for yourself, and there's no fancy, things that you have to figure out. Just every day, empty your pocket into the jar. That's it. That's pretty simple.
Yeah.
But then when the end result is there, it's amazing what it does for your confidence.
Oh yeah, that's probably quite fulfilling. I don't know that experience. I've never saved up to pay for a trip outright, but maybe I'll start. Okay, so just a kind of fun question, and I feel like I'm going to know your answer. You have an unexpected $1,000. Do you save it, invest it, or spend it?
I would say save it if you don't have any debt. And if you have debt, you want to take care of that debt, because you want to free up that, borrowing ability, that kind of stuff. Nothing that you can do in the investment world is going to give you back the return of getting rid of the debt. And there's also that peace of mind that the debt's not there.
Right, it's not weighing on you.
Exactly. That if circumstances change, you're not encumbered by that debt. That debt doesn't put you in, harm's way, as they say, and you just have it out of the way. There's a real value in getting rid of debt. And so, not just from a financial perspective, but from a mental perspective. And then if the debt is smaller or not there, save the money. There's going to be a need, and you'll have an opportunity to invest one day if you save enough to start with.
How do you prepare your materials for filing taxes in the spirit of approaching tax season? Is there something you do first?
As we go through the year, each individual tax, anything that I may need to do my tax return, I actually scan it into a file in my computer and then back it up to Carbonite or whatever you choose to use. And then at the end of the year, I just pull that file back out.
So you're preparing the whole time?
All along. And with that, of course, it doesn't take very long to do your taxes anymore. And but I like to save that stuff electronically. There's no reason to have a hard copy anymore. It's not necessary for the IRS. And so that way it's done immediately, and I don't have to worry about looking around in a file or a box or trying to find receipts.
Right.
I already have all that completed the minute I put it into the file.
I think it's a financial subject that scares a lot of people, but it really doesn't have to be daunting if you're on top of it.
It's really not at all daunting. And, you know, we have software now available, TurboTax, TaxSlayer, all those places that it's very straightforward, very intuitive.
And if you just have it organized.
That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
It will tell
that
you
makes
what to
sense. Do you have any favorite financial resources that you've used, whether it be books or online sites?
I would say that just, you know, there's a couple of different sites and things out there. Feed the Pig is a site that it's actually a .gov site, feedthepig.gov, and it's very similar to what we've talked about. It's just a matter of keeping you on task to keep the $30 a month or the $20, whatever it is that you've decided to save, to continue to save.
Okay.
Another tool that I've used before, and some of my customers have done this, and I think it's very easy to do and really a smart idea, is they will come in and buy a certificate of deposit at the bank, which is more or less just a certificate that says, okay, $500 or whatever the denomination is. And then they'll turn around and borrow money, let's say against a $500 CD or certificate of deposit, and set it up on monthly payments for a year. Well, the loan's secured by the certificate of deposit, so there's no risk to the bank to do it.
Right.
It generally costs like 2% to do that, and that is a forced savings. And then at the end of the year, they have the $500.
That's smart.
I mean, I've had customers that have, you know, up to 6 figures of savings just strictly from doing that every single year. It's just a way to, again, establish a habit.
And can any customer come in and open
Any
one?
customer can do that.
That's a good starting point.
Yeah, it really is. And again, it gives you that sense of victory at the end of the year when you get that certificate and it's yours.
Right.
And in the meantime, you've got something to cue you to save. It's a payment coupon you've got to send to the bank, and then all of a sudden you've got $500 instead
Right,
of,
and you've been held accountable to keep it.
and that also helps your credit score and other things. So there's a lot of benefits to doing it.
That's good to know. Well, what is one money tip or piece of advice that we could give watchers and viewers before we go that you think would increase their financial smarts today?
Pay yourself first.
Okay.
That is the best advice I've ever received.
Okay.
That is absolutely the best thing to do.
Well, Danny, thanks so much for sitting down with us,
Thank you.
and we will see you next time.